Welcome to the Armed and Ready podcast. I am your host, Jason Wood, the VA loan guy. We have a really exciting episode lined up for you, so come check it out. Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wood, the VA loan guy. So today we got a special episode for you. It is Jason Squared Day. I mean, we've got two Air Force vets, both named Jason, here on the podcast. So for all of our Air Force family, hoorah! We're excited today to bring Jason on board with us and just tell us about his story, right? And what he's got going on, what he did in the Air Force. So Jason, welcome, man. Thanks.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you as well.
Great to meet you too, man. First of all, great name, and you serve in the Air Force too. So clearly, you know, your intelligence level is very high. So, so tell us a little bit, man. I mean, you're in the Air Force. Does the Air Force, is it really even a military branch? I mean, what did you do? How'd you get into the Air Force?
You know, we all make the jokes between the branches about each other, but at the end of the day, we still all brothers in arms. And
That's true.
So when I joined, I did air traffic control. I didn't have any idea what it was. Usually people, when I tell them I do air traffic, they're like, you're the guy out there with the cones. No, that's not what I do. So, you know, I actually work in the tower, talking to the pilots, and I work the radar sector as well. I'm one of the guys you can call an up-down guy. They call us a scope dope because we look at a large TV most of the time. Joined the Air Force back in 2009, finished up in 2015, enjoyed it the whole time, man. I had 3 wonderful assignments, one being my hometown of Sumter, South Carolina at Shaw Air Force Base.
Awesome. That's cool. What was your reason for joining? What triggered you?
So growing up in South Carolina, especially a small town where I'm from, you know, we didn't have a lot of opportunities. Most of the time, you know, either playing sports, going to college, or working at one of the plants that are located in my area. And my father's ex-military, he's ex-Air Force, and so is one of my older brothers. And my father worked on the flight line, and he would always tell me when I was in high school, you know, have a plan. He actually talked me into doing ROTC while I was in high school. Like, you know, you never know if you're gonna go in the military. Me being a young guy, I was like, man, there's no way I'm going in the military. You know, whatever. I'm gonna go to college, get my finance degree, and do what I want to do. Try to make millions of dollars. You know, that was my mindset back then. And went to college, and it was not like high school. In high school, I was able to not study and make straight A's. College didn't pan out that way.
Nope.
I ended up having to find a recruiter. You know, it's just a funny story how I ended up getting into the air traffic career field. I happened to be walking into his office, and he was on the phone. He was like, yeah, you know, my friend makes so much money doing this job. And he gets off the phone. I didn't even know what he was talking about. Like, do they offer that job in the military? He goes, yeah. I said, sign me up. That's the only way I'm going.
That's awesome. So it's cool. So do you do your tech school down in Biloxi?
Absolutely. And, you know, I got family down in Mississippi, in Jackson, and in Biloxi, Mississippi. So it's almost like being home even when I was there.
That's where my tech school was. So I was airfield management. And I'll never forget, I was there during the summer months. And
the worst.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't have any clue what I was in for. And, I mean, you talk about hot. It was many Black Flag days, if you remember that, right?
Oh yeah, man. No PT. You know, people would always tell me, you're from the South, you should be used to this heat. You never get used to that type of humidity, man. It feels like the sun is literally taking a ride. It's like you're giving the sun a piggyback all day.
That's what it feels like. And you are just soaked. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
100% humidity. We had some days it was over 100 degrees. It's like 103 degrees, 100% humidity. And in the Air Force, when you're in like that student setting, you can't roll up your sleeves. I mean, long sleeves, hat, boots, the whole thing. And you are just dying. It is so hot.
You're definitely taking about 3 showers a day.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But it made me appreciate the dry desert climate where I was from in the summer months, because I always thought that was terrible. But then I went back and visited some family right after that. And I was like, it was like 105 outside one day, you know, no humidity. And I was like, man, this is like a spring day. It was so nice.
You know, a walk in the park.
Totally. Totally. So your ATC school, tell us about that. That's a long school, right?
Yeah, it's about roughly 4 to 5 months, depending on AFIs in between, which means awaiting further instructions for those who don't know. In tech school, when you're just waiting for a class. Yeah, when I got there, I went through what we call the dual track course. They've since changed it from what I've heard. Now you either go to strictly tower class or you go to strictly radar class. But when
Mm,
I went through the dual course, so I had to. You start off doing fundamentals. You kind of just learn, what you're doing there, how ATC kind of works, just the lingo of it all, the phraseology, a little bit of the rules, the very basics. And then they send you, you take a lot of tests in tech school when it comes to ATC. You do the very minor radar portion, and after that, you go back to class, learn how to work in the tower, and then they have these huge simulators. I think these screens are like 80 plus inches. There's three of them, one in the center and two on the sides, and they simulate an airport. And it's almost as if you're standing in a tower cab. You're looking out the windows, you see planes coming. It's ran by a computer. Uh, if you have an accent or a thick accent, it's horrible, but they can fix it. It's a fun time. And after that, they send you to your first base and see if you can do the real thing.
yeah. Where'd you go? What was your first duty station?
My first assignment was exactly where I'm from, and that's Sumter, South Carolina at Shaw Air Force Base. A small town. It's right outside of the capital of Columbia, but Sumter has its perks. It's only an hour and a half away from Myrtle Beach. Always a great
There you
time, and
go.
about 2 hours from Charleston, South Carolina. So hey, I can't complain.
No, that's a good location. Um,
Absolutely.
any fun stories or scary moments while you were in your active duty days?
Oh, of course, you have plenty of those. A lot of them you can't really tell on certain platforms, especially being ex-military. But I remember uh, headed home for my first base, and this was right before I showed up. They actually had some F-16s. Well, one of them went down over in the ocean on its way back during the exercise. I hadn't even shown up to the base yet, but my friends and my family knew that I was getting stationed back at Shaw, and the first thing I get a phone call like, "What did you do?" They knew I was going to be doing ATC. They automatically assumed it was me responsible for this incident. Like, man, I haven't even checked in and met any of my coworkers yet.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So, went from Shaw. Where'd you head after that?
After Shaw, I spent 3 years at Shaw. Wonderful people, by the way. I always have to shout out Shaw, especially since it's in my hometown. After 3 years at Shaw, I went out to Yokota Air Force Base out in Japan. Um, I was
Nice.
actually supposed to go a year prior, but we had some incident that happened, and I just missed the tsunami that happened. So the year I was supposed to go and I didn't
Oh,
go, I actually missed the tsunami that happened over there that caused all the took down the, I think it's the nuclear plant over there and everything.
yeah.
And
Yeah, it
I
did.
just missed that the year prior. I ended up
Ooh.
going out there the year after that incident. They still were doing a lot of cleanup, so I was a part of a lot of operations to help the pilots go down and do cleanup in that area where things had gone wrong at. Beautiful time, great time. Japan's a great area. Yokota's a great base to be at as well. My only complaint about that base is uh, the base being separated by a major highway. So you got a east
Oh,
side
no
of the
kidding.
base and a west side of the base, and the only way to get over to each side is crossing a major highway.
Oh, that's crazy. That's interesting. And then,
Yeah,
did you come back stateside after that?
yeah. I tried my best to stay overseas, and I probably would have stayed in if I did. But I did end up going to Whiteman Air Force Base over in Knob Noster, Missouri. If you've ever been out there, that's in the middle of the sticks, absolutely nowhere. I remember it was a big deal that they ended up getting a Buffalo Wild Wings, and it was on the front page of the newspaper out there. So that's how small it is.
It's a small town when a fast food restaurant makes the headline, right?
Headline of the newspaper in Knob Missouri, Buffalo Wild Wings, Warrensburg.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
So you transitioned out, obviously. So tell us about that transition and what you're up to these days.
Transitioning out, I think I had an easy time doing it because I did it kind of early. I kind of knew my time was coming to an end in the military. So even before TAPS, I was already looking to try to get my foot in the door as far as getting out or getting a job outside of the military. It just so happened that right before I left Japan, the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, had put out bids for jobs for ATC, and I wasn't even going to apply. I wasn't even going to apply. I still had a full 2 years left on my contract, and a good friend of mine named Sam, he works out in DFW now. Great friend of mine. We were stationed together. He told me, he said, "Man, just apply. The worst thing they can do is tell you no." So I applied literally the last day that you could, and as fate would have it, I was literally the only person that got picked up on that bid, even though I wasn't even going to apply.
No
Uh,
way.
exactly. It's crazy how it works. I ended up getting picked up. They waited for me to get out at the end of 2015. I got a class date early February of 2016, and here I am down in Montgomery, Alabama, working for Danley Field.
That's really cool. So you've been there what a good 6, 7 years now.
Yeah,
Um,
little too long. I'm trying to transition over into the supervisor side, maybe go someplace else. But hey, I'm fine where I'm at for now.
yeah. So so you guys are probably handling your fair share of commercial and military planes in the sky and stuff like that, and trying to keep everybody safe and straight. Um, do you guys see a lot of uh, uh, any big like challenge with like keeping the military guys away from the commercial guys and stuff like that, or is it pretty simple?
Oh no, man, they're right in the mix. Down here at Montgomery, I thought I was going to get away from having to work with the military pilots, and wouldn't you know, the Air National Guard base is attached to the airport, F-16. So we work their red tails and everything else that comes into Montgomery. Our commercial flights aren't as much, but because it's a smaller airport, we have a lot of GA guys, general aviation guys, who are learning to fly, that comes in, do a lot of practice approaches, along with the military aircraft such as F-16s, Tex 2s, the Beach Jets, C-130s, KC-135s. We get them all that come in, and it's a mixed bag. Some days it's pretty easy, but when you got those different contrasts of aircraft that come in at the same time, it could be hard to work.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Um, so, what's the plan next? So, supervisor role and maybe transition to a different location.
Yeah, transitioning to a different location. Sometimes my friends tell me I'm spreading myself a little too thin. I also invest. One of my good friends that I grew up with, he's an Army vet. I've invested in his company called Boots on the Ground Logistics. It's a trucking company. Another good friend of mine, I invested in her food company called Eighth Wonder Cuisine. She's a traveling chef. Um, another Army vet of mine named Ricardo Robinson, he's also into homes and things like that. So we do a couple projects together. We work together on some things, and then I do my air traffic control thing. Um, so I tell people air traffic control for me is on the side. So I'm
You got a
trying to
lot.
become my own boss. I would love to be a supervisor and show the agency what I have to offer as far as my knowledge and helping these younger guys advance in their career as well. But all of that'll come in time. I'm sitting here just waiting my turn, and while I do that, like I said, I do air traffic, quote unquote, on the side.
Nice, man. So, tell us a little bit about some of those the main ventures, since air traffic control is the side gig. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you're invested in. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, my buddy contacted me a few years ago. His name is Quentin Bracy. He was working contract overseas, but he was ready to come home. And so me and him had a few conversations about what he wanted to do. I'm more of the money guy. He knows how to operate everything and stuff like that. And so he was like, "Hey man, if you give me a couple grand, maybe we can go together, go in with each other on a long distance truck on an 18 wheel." And I said, "All right, cool, man. Just let me know what you need." And we started with just one or two trucks, and now we got a couple trucks, and he's been getting contracts with certain corporations, large corporations. I don't want to put them out there, but we've been doing pretty good so far. It's still building. We're still trying to, get out of the hole, so to speak, based on our initial investments. But it's been doing a great job. He's been doing a great job on his end.
Oh, that's
As
cool.
far as the restaurant is concerned, uh, it's called Eighth Wonder Cuisine. Me and her grew up together. Me and my best friend Brittany Moore, we grew up together. We've been best friends since the fifth grade. RP to her mother. Her mother was one of the catalysts for this. She always used to tell her, do something that you want to do, and her passion was always cooking. And so, she came to me and she said, "Hey, I want to do this full time. Can you help me out?" I was eager to jump on board because first of all, I'm a foodie and her food is delicious, and I believed in her vision. So I gave her what she needed. We have she's been traveling, her and uh, her significant other, who is also a bartender. So they do a thing. It's like a and oh, actually, they'll be cooking for the Masters coming up here soon. They
No
get booked for
way.
the Masters. It's a one stop shop for fine dining, pretty much.
That's cool. And they travel around to different events and put on like a fine dining experience.
Absolutely. You get a full course meal, and then you get bartender service, all the drinks your heart desires. So they do a real good job, and we've invested in a food truck. We're going to put out a food truck here shortly. And yeah, it's been a great ride. I can't even complain.
Now the restaurant industry, that's interesting. Coming out of the pandemic and stuff. Were you guys doing this during that time, or did it kind of happen after the pandemic let up?
So literally right before the pandemic happened, that's when we bought the food truck.
Oh
And then
gosh.
the pandemic happened, so we kind of put that on the back burner because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we were going to be allowed to have people come up to the food truck, so we kind of just waited for that. But as far as the traveling, she's been doing that. She's been doing a great job at that. You know, get the vaccine. We haven't had any problems. She's been able to travel free will, and it was rough because we didn't know what the future may hold. Here we are
Yeah.
dumping all of this money in at the beginning of close to the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, just for the country to shut down.
Right.
Anybody who has that kind of money tied up would be worried about that. So yeah, we were definitely on edge. We didn't know what the future may hold, but hey, it worked out in our favor. So like I said again, I can't even complain.
That's great. That's great, man. It's cool to see like the entrepreneurial side, right? And I think that's, something a lot of people have aspirations or thoughts about. And there's so many different ways to cut into that, right?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely,
and you don't have to be the operator, right? It doesn't have to be your full time job. Um,
exactly.
how much are you invested from a time perspective in some of these other businesses? Do you get into operational stuff at all, or what's your stance?
Oh, so basically, I'll tell them whatever you need. So they'll call me, hey man, I need you to show up to this event, or I need you to do this interview, or I need you to, as far as the trucking company is concerned, hey man, I need you to book a load somewhere. I'm out of town. I'm with my family. So whatever they need, I'm not so invested as far as time wise, and they allow me to do that based on my initial investment as far as the money was concerned. Because I told them, hey man, I don't want to run your company. I just believe in your vision, and I believe in your drive, and I just want to be a part of it. So whatever I can do to help them, because we're friends at the end of the day as well. A lot of people tell you it's not good to mix business and pleasure, but I haven't had that problem. They understand that I'm here to help them in any way that they need me to be there, and I step aside when it's their time to speak. I move out the way. Hey, I know who the experts are.
Yeah,
I, like people say, you always want to surround yourself with people smarter than you, and that's what I did.
that's really cool. That's really cool. So, there's the restaurant, the trucking. Was there another thing, or is it just those
Uh,
two?
just me and my friend Ricardo Robinson. He's an ex-military vet as well, army on the army side. He does a lot of housing projects, so he's allowed me to get in some of his investments as far as housing projects and things of that nature.
Oh, that's cool. So, are you guys buying like rental properties, or are you doing like flip properties, or what are you guys buying?
So he does a lot of he flips houses and things of that nature. Uh, it's funny that I may even doing this interview right now. The first property I'm actually going to do with him, as far as my own project, is my grandparents' old house. I'm renovating it to put it up for rent and things of that nature. So it's gonna be a blast. I'm learning trial by fire. I don't really have any idea what I'm doing as far as being in charge of the project, but I'm happy to learn.
Yeah, no, that'll be a really good experience. I mean, I think it gets little celebritized. You see the HGTV shows
Yeah,
with
yeah,
you know these flips, and it's so amazing, and it happens in 30 minutes. you know,
yeah. Oh,
uh,
it's definitely not gonna happen that fast.
yeah. Of course, it's made for TV that way, but there's and from all the people that I've spoken with that are involved in flipping houses, there's a lot to it. There's
Oh,
a lot
absolutely.
of there's a lot to know. You learn a lot, and there's a lot of time involved as well. And so it's an interesting thing. It's not quite as easy as it might appear to be on TV. But I think once you get the hang of it and you can get a system and a process down, then you can really roll with it.
Absolutely. My I take my hats off to guys who do things like flipping houses, and women, men and women that flip houses, or even running their own company, restaurants, logistics company. It's definitely time consuming. Especially when you're the boss. A lot of people say that they want to be the boss until they get put in those shoes. I want to be my own boss, but I want to get there. When it's time for me to get there. I don't want to rush into anything, and I definitely take my hats off to people like you and others who are running their own show.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, right? Yeah, you always want to be the boss
Absolutely.
until you're the boss. And then you got to deal with
Exactly. Exactly.
all the stuff the boss has to deal with, right? You
Absolutely.
know, when the janitor doesn't show up, you're the janitor. When the toilet paper runs out, you got to fill the toilet paper. You
Oh
know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, and
Absolutely.
and on to the more complex things, and personnel constraints and issues, and all that stuff is all in addition to the actual duties of running the business, right? Of like
Mhm.
making it make revenue. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, there's a lot to it, man. You gotta have a passion for it, right? You gotta love it, love what
Absolutely.
you do.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what's been keeping me around as far as ATC is concerned. I had to claw my way to get here. I like to tell people I fought like sort of an uphill battle. I had some disagreements with my higher ups at the time when I first came into the military. But hey, I just wanted to show everybody that I could do it. Even when I told people before I left home to train for ATC, I was like, hey, I'm gonna be doing air traffic control. And it's surprising that people will tell you what you can't do until they see you doing it. So I was so happy when I got my first certification as far as being an air traffic controller, because I was able to prove all the doubters wrong. And this is what I love to do. I absolutely love watching, being able to, and having a type A personality. You want to be in control, and we're called controllers for a reason. Everybody has to do what we tell them to do. So hey, it's pretty fun, man. I can't complain.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine too, it really like helps you with like developing like multitasking skills, right? I mean, because
Oh, absolutely.
you're dealing with so much at one time, right? Um, and I think what is it, I think it's like Time Magazine or something every year puts out the issue where they talk about like the most stressful jobs in America, and I think ATC is usually a higher ranking job up there for stress, right?
Yeah, they rank us high, but if you talk to a lot of the controllers, the people that actually control, I think that's more of an outside perception than it is coming from us. Like, yes, it can be stressful. I'm not gonna, downplay it. There are some days where you just want to pull your hair out. But most of the times, especially, I was born just at the right time. I'm a gamer. So to me, and I know this is gonna sound kind of bad, but it's like being the ultimate gamer. You don't have a reset button, and you have to be perfect every time. And I just love it. It's like, hey, here I am. I feel like I was almost made for it, or groomed for it is a better term.
That's a really good way of putting it. And I think it's interesting. I have a nephew who's really into gaming and stuff, and he's young. I always have this thought process in my head of like, okay, what is that gonna bring forward for you for opportunity right down the
Oh
road, if
yeah.
that's if you stick through that to that for such a long time. But that's interesting dynamic that you posted there, because you're right, like you're having to deal with like multiple situations a lot, and a lot of information hitting you at one time, and you're sending
Oh,
information
absolutely.
out like crazy. um, so yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about it. And and not a bad way for those who are listening or watching who, right now gaming is their thing, right? And maybe they're going to make it big as a gamer, because I know that you can these days. But that's probably a very small percentage, right? So the lion's share aren't going to end up being professional gamers. They're going to end up doing something else.
Yeah.
Hey, and why not go to the military? Go get into ATC. I mean, it's a great career field.
Oh, absolutely. I look at, no disrespect to my guys on the flight line and things like that, man. But, when I'm watching my friends that I used to live in the dorms with after working 15, 16-hour days, and it's illegal for us to work more than 10 hours in a row, hey, I'll take ATC any day.
Yeah, and you're not on the flight line, which is hot. And nice air-conditioned can up high.
Exactly. Hey, rain, sleet, or snow, those guys on the flight line are out there while I get to sit back in a room, temperature control room, and do my thing.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, Jason, I just really enjoyed our chat today, learning about you and another Air Force vet, entrepreneur on top of it, just doing a lot of cool stuff, man. Very exciting. And I just love that our audience is able to learn, from you, that you can do a lot. Like, there's so much opportunity,
Absolutely.
right? Tons of opportunity. You just gotta go grab it, right?
Absolutely.
Got to go out there and get it. Well, thank you so much, man. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being on our podcast today. We really appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks so much for checking out this week's episode. Please subscribe, click the link below, share with your friends. And hey, if you know a military person or a veteran with a great story to share, we would love to highlight them on the podcast and get their story out to everybody. Thanks so much.